here's what I know. Someone's going to have to start the fight for Nebraska, all right? So I'm here to fight for Nebraska. And finally, the team grows up. It's what people always ask me about year 3. Finally, the team grows up, and they're like, well, I got to go make the play.
It's time to join the Husker Huddle with Nick Handley and Grant Hansen.
Hey there, and welcome to another Husker Huddle. Alongside Grant Hansen, I am Nick Handley, and we are happy to be with you on another December week of no real football going on with Nebraska, but we've got clarity in the postseason. We know exactly where Nebraska is going for a bowl game. We know what our college football playoff looks like. We know that Notre Dame does not practice what they preach. I'll get to that a little bit later.
Oh boy,
yeah, I'm a little.
And we also know the Army-Navy game.
That's true.
It's a waste of time.
Whoa.
Yeah. Not a patriot. I guess I'm not a real patriot.
Yeah. Well, we're ending the podcast right now because Grant is now revoking his patriotism. He is not interested in the Army-Navy game.
I'll look at the final box score, but I'm not going to watch it.
Here's a question. Will you watch the entire Heisman Trophy ceremony?
No, I won't watch that either. That's a box score event too.
I'm with you.
Especially this year, because I know there's been a lot of debate this year. And we're just doing we're doing our final segment first, apparently. But there's been a lot of debate this year. Like, is this the weakest Heisman class ever? And it's like, it's the weakest that I can remember.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not good.
I'm cool with just getting the push notification on my phone, letting me know who won.
And Jeremiah Love, I don't even know who won the award 5 years ago, but Jeremiah Love would not have been invited.
No,
I don't even think Diego Pavia would have been invited 5 years ago.
No.
I think you could do the same act with 10 years ago.
Yeah.
He does not deserve the award.
Let's just give it to Mendoza and call it.
I would prefer to just give it to Mendoza.
Yeah, let's call
that's
it
just
good.
me.
But I know for everybody being invited and going through the whole pageantry of it, cool. Congratulations. I don't want this to come across of me being sour grapes on the Heisman. I have not watched
Why?
in a
Because
long
you wish
time.
Jalen Raiola was there?
No, because people are like, oh, you're just mad because Emmett Johnson didn't get it. No, I'm not.
Are there people that even think that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, God. I hope not.
I think there's probably... Yeah,
you guys think we're that disconnected from reality?
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody's like, oh, yeah, come in. Emmett should be there. But I don't want to make this sound like I'm disinterested because it doesn't involve anybody with Nebraska. That's not the case. I just haven't watched in a very long time because I
don't remember the last time I watched it.
It just goes on very long. And I know there's some really cool stories of how these players got there.
The most significant thing I remember, man, this is way off track, but I remember a World Herald cover when Johnny Manziel won.
Oh, okay.
That's the only, that's the last time I remembered it being truly significant.
You went out in your porch slippers and picked up the paper that morning.
No, my dad did. But even to me, okay, if we're thinking, has the Heisman Trophy jumped the shark? Is that a question we're asking?
It's a fair question. Because
and the answer is when, and if an additional question would be when, and then my answer would be when Bryce Young made it out to be that nobody ever believed in him, and it was this massive underdog story. Yeah. When he was the highest rated recruit that went to one of the best high schools in the country, and then went to Alabama.
When they do the Diego Pavia story, it's going to be all about that.
What, he's like 50?
Well, that could be that too, but
he's older than Phillip Rivers, and Phillip Rivers has been retired for 5 years. Until this week.
Exactly. Take a look at that. But yeah, I mean, and I don't want to dismiss the stories of how all of these individuals got to
Mendoza
that level.
Okay, if we're going to do the Game of Thrones metrics, okay, so for people who didn't watch the end of Game of Thrones, I don't know. You did not?
No.
It sucks, obviously. But the way they decide who's going to be the next king of all of the countries, I guess, is they said... Peter Dinklage walks up and he says, we're just going to give it to the guy with the best story. So they give it to Bran.
Okay.
And they give it to this cripple, this freaking blind cripple. And then they're like, hey, why don't you lead this? That's what it, not that Fernando Mendoza is a blind cripple, but to me, if I'm going to give
Plays
it away.
Quarterback like a really good blind cripple.
As much as the end of Game of Thrones stunk it up, that's how I would give the Heisman Trophy this year to the best story, which to me is Fernando Mendoza, not the guy who continuously abuses eligibility rules.
I think he earned it anyway, but that's
that too.
Me. But anyway, we do got a lot to talk about other than our just little diatribe there of whatever. We're going to be talking to Robin Washut because I know you know this, Grant. I know everybody watching this knew, but did you think this would be the case beginning of the season? The Nebraska men's basketball team, at least as we're recording right now, is undefeated heading into the Wisconsin game.
Guys, recording this on Wednesday afternoon. Hopefully things don't change circa 4 hours from now.
Not pulling a Nebraska football, get ranked, and all of a sudden get bounced out of the rankings. But Nebraska is ranked at number 23.
What happened? Memory hole. I'm going to look this up right now. I don't even know what happened. When Nebraska was last ranked in 2018, what happened in the game after that?
I do not know.
I'm going to look that up while you continue to tell everybody about everything else that's housekeeping.
I'll set the stage for the show today. But yes, Robin Washut, who obviously will talk some football because we got a lot to get into with the Nebraska football team. With a new defensive coordinator, new offensive line coach, there could be an assistant offensive line coach on the way, possibly a new defensive line coach of major significance when it comes to this staff too. So there's a lot going on with the staff. Not a lot of portal activity, which is good, and not a lot of crazy opt-outs for the bowl game as well. We'll get into all of that with Robin Washut coming up in just a moment. Also going to be talking, Grant Hansen actually had a chance to talk.
I found the answer.
Okay. Hold that thought. Humorous. Hold that thought. Grant Hansen, speaking of that new defensive coordinator and Rob Orich, one of his former players at Idaho, Andrew Marshall, still on the Nebraska roster. I love talking to Andrew
Marshall, by the way. The two guys that we talked to this week, if you didn't see it, you'll probably see it at some point on Facebook, the Nick Handley interview with Luke Lindenmeyer.
Yeah.
So fun. I last week I had even forgotten that he's going to be back with the team next year.
Yes, he is.
Which is a really, honestly, important weapon for Nebraska, but he's an even better person to be around, as you probably could have guessed.
Yeah.
And then Andrew Marshall, same thing. Really look forward to that conversation later on in the show, and he has some insight on org too.
Yes, he does, and we're going to get all of that with your conversation with Andrew Marshall. Also, we'll have some mailbag questions, some basketball ones even that I saw that are in the mailbag, and just some overall thoughts on the college football playoff and some of the bowl games. As we usually do predictions, we obviously don't have any games to really predict this weekend, so we'll get into all of that. And before we give you our Omaha Steaks prime cuts, what happened when Nebraska was ranked in basketball in 2018?
Okay, there are two acceptable answers, but both of them are accompanied by losses. So they've started the 2018 season with I'm just going to guess. Would you have a record guess?
2018 season, the first time they were ranked, like what the record was?
That was the last time they were ranked,
right.
But they started the year with a 8-1 record.
Okay.
So they enter the top 25 and then go on the road to Minnesota and lose. Immediately, 85-78.
Yep.
Then they come back the next week, beat the doors off Creighton at PBA, 94-75. Beat Oklahoma State, Cal State Fullerton. They're back in the top 25 at number 25. And then they exit it again for whatever reason, beat Southwest Minnesota State, and then they enter the new year at number 24.
Okay.
Then they proceeded
lost to Michigan State.
Lose to Maryland by 2 on the road, and then Iowa and Iowa City 93-84, and then they didn't get back in again, and then they finished the year 19 and 17. I'm suddenly very curious about this team. Why don't you queue up those prime cuts, and I'll find some more.
Yep, I'm going to queue up those prime cuts, which are always brought to you by our friends at Omaha Steaks, your go-to for tailgate favorites. They've got you covered from sizzling steaks, all your tailgate favorites. Omaha Steaks, proud partner of Nebraska Athletics, and here are this week's Omaha Steaks prime cuts.
Well, the biggest thing with Rob is is purely the tape. I mean, when I watch the tape, it's the play style that I want. You know, I mean, you just see people flying around. You see people playing at a really high level, and to me, for both stops, whether it was Idaho or whether it was San Diego State, it was in his first year as coordinator. It wasn't like, hey, this is going to take 2 years, this is going to take 3 years. It was like right off the bat. So I just fell in love with the tape.
My coach spoke to me about him becoming a potential option to be a defensive coordinator, and then he told me, you know, I relayed the information to the guys. You know, I told him, you know, he's a great coach. You know, y'all gonna love his coaching scheme, his coaching style. Like, you know, if I love him, y'all gonna love him.
You just hear the word Utah and you know what it means, right? I mean, great defense, great running game. You watch their offense; it's exotic, it's exciting. It's you know, the quarterback runs. It's a lot of different things, and so you know, they know exactly what's at stake, and they're also unhappy with how we played the last 2 games.
It's cool to play a ranked opponent. It's a great way to end our season. Playing a good team, a team like that, it'll be a good challenge for offense and defense. So I'm excited. Haven't really looked into them that much yet, but it's gonna be fun.
Guys are kind of chomping at the bit to get their opportunity. They're competing in practice because you're not going to play 4 backs, so they're competing. But we've seen all year in practice what Isaiah can do. There's no doubt in any coach's mind what Isaiah can do. There's no doubt in any coach's mind what Makai and Quentin can do. We've been big believers in them. They just had to wait their turn behind a guy that was really, really hot, and we weren't playing 80 plays a game. We had some long drives on defense. Those guys might get a touch here, a touch there. When they got their touches, I always thought they did something really good.
This week's Prime Cuts, as always, brought to you by Omaha Steaks, your go-to for game day. From sizzling steaks to all of your tailgate favorites, they've got you covered. Omaha Steaks, proud partner of Nebraska Athletics. So a lot there. We only had a little bit of the student-athlete media availability. It was only a couple of guys, Andrew Marshall and Luke Lindemeyer, who we had a chance to talk to.
Sure.
But you heard more from Matt Rule on a variety of things. But I think right now, when I think of Matt Rule, he mentions this during the press conference about, and this didn't make the Prime Cuts, but I can't remember. I think it was Sam McEwen who asked the question of, you've got all of this going on with your coaching staff and trying to put pieces in place and also trying to get this team ready for a bowl game.
Against a ranked team.
Right. Talking about, this was one of those things that we thought would actually help out all of the Division I college football coaches, where you push that transfer portal window back into January so you could put all of your focus on postseason, or sort of getting all your eggs in a basket for the preseason. As we're learning, and obviously this doesn't apply to every program, but when you have staff attrition and staff changes, you're trying to get a lot of these guys in place. As we heard, Jeep Wade's going to be the offensive line coach for the bowl game. He's already working with the offensive line. Rob Orich will have some familiarity. He's not, that's going to be a Phil Snow thing.
Now, he's coaching the bowl game, is he not, for San Diego State?
For San Diego State, yes.
Yeah, and that's important, by the way, for people who want to do some early scout on them. They play on the 27th in the New Mexico Bowl against number 25 North Texas. And theoretically, as we know how things are in the current day and age of college football, there could be some future Nebraska Cornhuskers playing in that game. Yep. So I think that's kind of suddenly... as we'll talk later in the show too about bowls and the state of the sport. That's sort of been the discussion probably for the last 15 years, right. But that adds some intrigue to an otherwise CFP aside relatively boring bowl season.
Yeah. So, but the feeling I got is this is where you look at the structure of how Matt Rule has really put his staff together, and you've got a GM, you've got all of your analysts, and you've got a GM for a reason, not only to handle the upcoming roster, but also being able to take a look at the personnel situation that you're finding yourself in, and having that luxury while you try to make these hires.
Oh, yeah.
But also try to get this team ready for a bowl game.
If you don't have a GM right now, you're behind.
Right.
So Nebraska, that's the sort of the maybe comfort in the storm of the current landscape of college football that seems to shift constantly, is that Nebraska's been ahead of the curve. And Troy Dannon deserves a lot of credit for that among a number of different areas. We talked, we haven't touched on it yet necessarily. We probably won't in great detail, but the Playfly deal that was announced this week, I mean, that's a bunch of extra money in Nebraska's pocket when it goes out there to try to. So, and then you have, the events with the Zach Bryan concert and everything else in Nebraska is doing to utilize Memorial Stadium to generate revenue. Like, Troy Dannon has realized, okay, we need to find ways to do more than rev share and to be able to get that to our players so that we could continue to compete at a high level. And he's found other ways to do that. So credit where credit is due there. Now comes to the point where you got to get results. But I mean, you have to like where Nebraska has been in that regard, at least to this point.
And back to the Rob Orich part of this too, of when Matt Rule talked about what stood out about Rob Orich, and I think he talked about, the personalities, that's one thing, but this is more about the tape and watching the way that his guys fly around. And as he was saying this on Tuesday, I couldn't help think in the back of my head, now there's going to be completely different schemes, 3-3-5 for Tony White, 4-2-5 for Rob Orich.
Which, by the way, the last time he did a transition from, when he sort of has this rep as a quick fixer and not quick fixer, a quick turnaround guy. Mm-hmm. Like, he goes into defenses that suck, i.e. San Diego State's last year, and makes them good. They're 5th in scoring defense this season, up from 97th a year ago. 3 shutouts this year, 12 points per game, thereabouts. Yeah. Good against the pass, total defense in good shape. He went from a 3-3-5 to his 4-2-5. Yeah. So he's already done that at San Diego State. Now, the Big Ten's obviously a different level of talent in the Mountain West, but again, if you're looking for reasons for optimism, that's one for you right there.
Yeah, when he was talking about the style of play, and Matt Rhule's describing that about what he's seen from San Diego State and just even Idaho, and when he's watched a lot of the tape under Rob Orich, he's talked about everyone flying to the ball and just a high-energy type of defense. And again, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, this is exactly what I remember seeing in Tony White. This when I first saw, even in the red-white game, watching, everybody wanted to see, what is this 3-3-5 going to look like? And then you kind of watch it play out. And like, oh, okay, this is fascinating. It's not always 3 down linemen. There's a lot of fluidity of how many guys are actually going to have a hand in the dirt as opposed to, maybe having some guys sort of roaming towards the line of scrimmage. And it was very creative. But more than anything, I think it inspired that high level of play. There's that creativity that has that unpredictable factor that is tough to really get a sense of it if you're an offense. And I just got the feeling, listening to Matt Rhule talk, I thought about a lot of the same things that we saw with our eyes with why those Tony White defenses were successful. Not necessarily scheme, but that ability. How many times we talk about the Tony White defenses where you'd see multiple hats on the football. You'd see guys covering sideline to sideline. A lot of that athleticism that was truly highlighted by a high-energy defense. I thought it was a very similar conversation.
You're looking for passion and effort.
Yeah.
You're looking for passion and effort. And, not to say that was entirely missing this year, but look, I don't think you get the results that you get in those last 2 games without missing some of those 2 things. Mm-hmm. So, I'll be interested to sort of, to me, the most interesting bowl game all of a sudden isn't Nebraska's. For me, it's that North Texas San Diego State game. Yeah. I mean, look, I think Nebraska's is obviously very interesting for the fact that Nebraska has a chance to beat a ranked opponent. But still, I mean, my outlook for the future of Nebraska will be essentially unshifted by this game. I mean, unless somebody has a very, very significant injury, which I have a hard time foreseeing. So that's watching this defense and with different personnel, obviously, operate against North Texas and a team and a quarterback that's very, very good will be fascinating.
The Jeep Wade hire, the offensive line coach.
You were in Donnie's corner.
I was in Don. I have no problem saying that if they decided to run it back with Donovan Raiola, you could sell me on that, because I did think interior offensive linemen, for the most part, under Donovan Raiola, did pretty well. But as we know, you're not just judged on that part, the holistic offensive line. And if we put all of that in there with the revolving door that you had at the tackle position, some of that not necessarily his fault with injuries, but did you see probably the most important part, if you're going to be able to have success throwing the football as well as run block on a consistent basis, that tackle position, you just never saw anything leaps and bounds or any major jumps. So I get it. I definitely do. But if you told me you wanted to run it back, I could have been sold on that. I know that's not the popular answer, but yeah, I could have been sold on that. But I'm not going to say the fact that they decided to part ways is the wrong course of action. I think it also shows there's a major sense of urgency. Matt Rhule wants to see from left tackle to right tackle and everything in between, for that to find that consistency that we saw from left guard, center, and right guard, but unfortunately not from left tackle and right tackle.
And here's where I feel like before this happened, I totally disagreed with your outlook. To me, the guys that got fired were the guys I expected to get fired and should have been fired. Mm-hmm. And Donnie was among that group. Mainly, well, for one reason, your 5-star quarterback had his leg broken. And look, I get it. Like, you deserve some credit for running the ball well, but the way they continuously failed to pass protect with as experience as a group as they had, with as much money as they invested in Rocco Spindler and Elijah Pritchett, that's not good enough. And here are the Joe Moore finalists for this year, which the Joe Moore Award goes to the best offensive line in college football. They are Indiana, Iowa, and Oregon. And so at a certain point, when the three finalists for the best offensive line in football are all in the Big Ten, it's an 18-team league, and you're in year 4, being just good on guard to guard is not good enough. And look, you're right. I mean, they played well on the interior. And he came in to Nebraska, did Donnie, as a center developer, essentially. And
did pretty damn good.
Justin Evans,
Ben Scott was good,
solid, But by the time you get to year 4, just being good on the interior is not good enough.
No,
especially against everything else that you have to compete with. Because I bet if the finalists were 5 deep in the Big Ten for best offensive line, or rather, sorry, for the Joe Moore Award, if it was a 5-team finalist, I still bet they would all be Big Ten.
Yeah, very
because
well
I think you would throw Ohio State's in there.
Yep.
You could make an argument, in some years
Michigan's
from
been
Michigan.
Very good. Yep.
So it's just in the league you're in, you can't afford to wait, especially if you feel like there's a guy out there who's an upgrade. And look, if you look at the success, again, different league in the ACC, but if you look at the success that Jeep Wade has had. You have to realize, okay, well, we can go get an upgrade or we can be comfortable.
Right. I did think that it was interesting that Matt Rule said this. Now, I'm not totally taking him 100% on his response on, the disconnect between, he and Donovan Raiola, or, ultimately what led to parting of the ways. But when he talked about it really wasn't anything to do with Donovan Raiola as an offensive line coach. He had high praise for Donovan Raiola. He talked about it being more of a fit in the Dana Holgorsen offense. That's where I push back a little bit, because I think that this probably crystallized, a lot of the points you bring up probably crystallized with Matt Rule, I think even earlier in the season than we're probably even thinking. I go back to watching that Michigan State game where there was that 2-quarter, maybe 1.5 quarter moment where he just,
it was horrendous.
Where Dylan couldn't find anything. And then it led to him having some really sloppy mechanics just to try to make something happen. And then you look at the way the season ended, where you've got some of the most physical line of scrimmages that you have seen between Penn State and Iowa, and how that was exploited. Yeah, I think it was pretty much a done deal when you're looking at the physicality, that what you can survive and maybe keep your head just slightly above water like Nebraska did, but that's not what you're aiming for. Yeah. You're aiming to be in that top tier, and there's no way that you can do that from a physical standpoint if you're going to stand up to those types of teams in the trenches.
If I had, and this is kind of a useless exercise, but we're going to do it anyway, if I had to rank these guys from most deserving of departure to least, I think Donovan Raiola would be my first guy. Followed by John Butler, then Terry Braden. And, I don't think Terry Braden's firing is necessarily more a reflection of him relative to, one, he's got a change in management with the boss. Yeah. But 2, the fact that I think Nebraska perceives that it has a clear upgrade available to it out there on the market that they can take. And so, you think back to the color analysts on the Big Ten Network this year, who John Cook took their position. Mm-hmm. It wasn't because they were horrible color analysts on those volleyball TV broadcasts. It was because John Cook was available.
Yeah, someone better is out there.
That piece of the puzzle currently missing for me, right? Because we don't know yet who Nebraska's hiring to fill that role. That whole take could be proven to be completely wrong.
Yeah, because I don't think we know about Terry Braden necessarily as a college football position coach.
And again, you have another guy who's coming from the NFL to coach collegiately. And it's a different game.
Yeah.
Same thing with John Butler. Now, for Butler, you can kind of, I think, give him some outs in that he's taking over a coaching staff that he didn't really essentially have a role in assembling fully.
Didn't have a lot of pre-existing relationships with any of them.
And then on top of that, he's kind of hamstrung in that he has to run Tony White's defense, but Tony White isn't there anymore. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things that were working against him, apart from maybe some of the other things that he did that was detrimental to himself.
Yeah, I don't know if he was in the best position to succeed, especially with that defensive line. Like, let's be honest with what John Butler, and even I would say to a larger degree, maybe Terry Braden, at least the optics come across as sort of scapegoats, because you mentioned the 3-3-5, but what they failed to do with the defensive line to have reinforcements with that size. We've heard about it all year long. I remember Sean Callahan was talking about this with us earlier in the year too, just talking about how small physically that defensive line looks when you put pads on and they're going up against even a Big 12 offensive line like Cincinnati. Like there's a discrepancy there, but Nebraska just never really did much in that reinforcement level of the defensive line. So I in a way feel like Terry Braden was dealt that hand and, hey, make the most of it. But remember, we heard this when Matt Rule talked about if there's anything that you have to say from a critical standpoint as a coach, don't tell me we don't have the guys there, because it's on you to try to develop and make those guys the players that are going to help them be successful. And, we wonder if maybe at some point that was talked
Who's
about.
that message to?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, good discussion. And let's thank our friends at Omaha Steaks.
We will. We're going to be talking to Robin Washut here in just a moment. But yes, as you know, it is the season for gift giving. We've got the best gift for you to give, and that is a box from Omaha Steaks. Whether it is those very famous sirloins. I just had one last night, by the way. It's just so good because it was 50 degrees out, so you had to grill out. I hope everyone else did.
I should have done it last night. I didn't.
Yes, you should have.
I'm going to bite the bullet tonight maybe and do it anyway.
But some lean chicken, it cooks so well. It tastes so great. But also everything from like your tailgate favorites. Like you can get buffalo wings. You can get hot dogs. Those are so good because they're the Omaha Steaks premium quality of every meat that is in that box for anyone that you're looking to give a gift to.
Folks, we have a way for you to save big on gourmet gifts and more holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks by visiting omahasteaks.com right now. 50% off site-wide during the Sizzle All the Way sale. And folks, for an extra $35 off, use promo code HUDDLE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. Once again, that's omahasteaks.com. Use code HUDDLE for $35 off at checkout.
All right, as we get into not only bowl season, but what I didn't necessarily think would be peak excitement on the hardwood with Nebraska men's basketball. But right now, as we stand, Nebraska with a top 20 net ranking, they have now created the longest win streak in program history. If you date back to last year, they've matched their longest season win streak going back to 77-78 with that big win over Wisconsin last night, which was dominant, especially in the second half. We're happy to talk all about that. Nebraska basketball, maybe the ceiling, but a little football as well with Robin Washut of Husker Online. So, Robin, let's go into last night at Pinnacle Bank Arena. This was a game that everyone said, okay, now Nebraska is really going to be tested. It's a conference matchup. It's kind of a physical Wisconsin team. Nebraska really hasn't had that, even with a banged up Creighton team. Boy, they haven't really had that big test. It just seemed, especially at the end of the first half and really the entire second half, that Nebraska, I don't know if they went into that game wanting to make a statement. Either way they did. Did you see this coming at all?
Not to that extent, no. I mean, I picked Nebraska to win and cover, but that meant covering a 1.5 spread. So, I thought it was going to be a close game. I think I picked Nebraska to win by 2. I really went on a limb with that cover. I did not envision a 30-point victory by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that's kind of what, when you talk about this being a statement game, certainly just wasn't because they won, but the way that they absolutely dominated every facet of that game against a Wisconsin team that came in at 7-2, was ranked 26th in the net rankings. They were almost 20 spots ahead of Nebraska in the net rankings going into that one. And so that was supposed to be the first kind of test about what this team actually was all about. Leading up through non-con play, it was like, oh, all right, well, whatever, they beat these teams, whatever. Let's see what happens in Big Ten play. Well, their first taste of Big Ten play, they absolutely bullied one of the supposed better teams in the conference for a full 40 minutes. And so that, I think, caught a lot of attention, not just around the Big Ten, but nationally. I mean, you look at like the Field of 68 or any of the national bracketology, like that kind of sent some shockwaves a little bit to where Saturday's game at Illinois, that's the next big challenge, first true road game. One of the best teams in the Big Ten that's playing red hot basketball right now. That's going to have kind of the national spotlight on it because of how well Nebraska not only has played to date on the season, but how well they looked, how good they played in that Wisconsin win. So surprising, but kind of one of those gradual evolutions of this team where they're doing a lot of things right now. And when you pair what they did against Creighton, what they did against Wisconsin, they're kind of clicking on all cylinders right now.
Robin, I want to go back to a word you just said a little bit ago. It was in your column that you posted after the Creighton victory as well. Bullied. Nebraska did it to Creighton. They did it to Wisconsin on Wednesday night. Now they face an Illinois team that is, I guess, sort of, you could maybe call one of the bullies of the Big Ten. I think Brad Underwood kind of looks like a bully.
Whoa.
I know. Hey, but no, I mean, come on. That's the style they play. I think he would be
Grant
fine with
doesn't
that.
speak for all of us, Brad.
Yeah. Anyway, can they do that again? I mean, can they match and continue to up that level of physicality on Saturday against an Illinois team that's been the hallmark for that program?
Yeah, I mean, this is a much different animal right now where, again, I didn't expect them to do what they did against Wisconsin, so I guess I shouldn't totally eliminate it as a possibility, but I would be stunned if Nebraska was able to control the game from start to finish on Saturday the way they did last night against Wisconsin. Illinois is a much better team. I think you look at Ken Pom rankings, they're a top 10 team nationally. They really don't have very many weaknesses, and they're kind of a veteran team, just like Nebraska is, where they've got a bunch of guys that have played professionally overseas that are not scared of anything, and so they've got about as much teeth as Nebraska has seen yet this season. So this is one of those where, if you want to talk about like a true barometer of what Nebraska's all about, this is probably as much of that as we've seen thus far, just because of the challenge that Illinois presents, the talent they have top to bottom, the fact that this is their first true road game. This is unfamiliar territory for this Nebraska group to not have the majority of the fan base on their side. And so we're going to learn a lot about this group. But either way, whether they win or lose, the winning streak comes to an end. As long as they don't get completely run out of the gym by 30 or 40 points, a loss doesn't really hurt you at all in the grand scheme of things. Certainly it kind of slows your momentum a little bit, but this is one of those things that even in a loss, you can learn and grow as a team because of all the firsts that they're going to be experiencing in this game. So I look at this game as more of an opportunity, and if they're able to defend at the level that they have the past two games, they're going to have a chance against anyone because they're a good enough offensive team right now that if they pair that with elite defense, which they've done their last two times on the floor, they're a top 15 team, which their net ranking reflects. And, again, if they can do that against Illinois, you talk about the shockwaves after Wisconsin, that'll be tenfold if they do that anywhere close against Illinois.
Robin Washut joining us from Husker Online. You said something right there that is exactly where I wanted to get into next of Fred Hoiberg made that decision a couple of years ago of if I'm going to be successful in the Big Ten, I got to embrace defense even way more than the offensive side. And what Fred Hoiberg teams at Iowa State were known for. And now it seems like finally he's got that defensive, whether it's on-ball pressure, the help side defense, the ability to close down passing lanes, all of those things that are going to help you be successful, not only in the Big Ten, but just in every game. But now the offense to complement it, whether we're talking about a rink mass, Jamarcus Lawrence was fantastic. We've seen Bearcay give great efforts on both ends, especially defensively too. You have so many different options, what you can do offensively, but everybody seems like they are dialed in defensively. How much of just that embracing of the defensive side do you think has freed up the offense this season?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the kind of the real separator of why this season has been what it's been thus far, is because I think there was no question that they were going to be able to shoot the ball significantly better. They built their roster to have Rink Mass be the centerpiece and surround them with shooters. So like there's really not a surprise that they're scoring at the level that they are. But the way that they've been able to complement that with defense, I mean, their defense has been just as good and in some cases better than their offense, which I personally did not see that coming. I thought they were going to be limited athletically with just the personnel they had, and they were going to have some issues against, more physical, bigger, stronger, faster lineups that they've seen. And again, they'll get a real taste of that on Saturday, but against with what they've faced thus far, that hasn't been nearly the issue that many people, myself included, would have thought. And what it comes down to is, for me, the intelligence of this group. They're a veteran roster that knows where they're supposed to be. They understand their defensive assignments, and they are able to anticipate plays because they're in the right place at the right time. And when they're anticipating, then all of a sudden they get far more active with their hands. They're deflecting passes, they're blocking shots, they're jumping passing lanes, creating turnovers, and doing all those things that kind of make the offense thrive as a result, to allow them to play with pace and with transition. So it's kind of been a ripple effect. Like, their offense is good, but it's been even better because of how well they've defended and how they're creating offense through their defense and not letting whatever streakiness they might have as far as their shooting impact their effort and intensity defensively. I mean, they are not undefeated right now without committing on the defensive end the way that they have.
Robin, is Peyton Sanford sort of a
Price?
A Price, sorry, yeah. Is he an upgraded version of Keisei Tominaga? Last night we saw the back cut that Keisei really made a big part of his game during his senior year. He maybe doesn't have some of the flair or some of the trick shot capability, but he seems to have really stepped into that role in a big way.
Yeah, I would say he's a much more rounded player than Keisei. I mean, Price can defend. Price can beat guys off the dribble and absorb contact and finish at the rim. He's crafty around the basket, and so he's got the shooting element. He's not the shooter Keisei is, but when he's hot, he's as good of a shooter as there is in the conference. So I think that he brings some of that element to where, like, Keisei could go and just be unconscious and hit 3, 4, 5 straight threes and completely change a game. Price has that ability, but what has kind of made him so valuable is all the other things that he does. Talk about that activity defensively. Price is in there blocking shots. He's getting defensive rebounds. He's initiating offense off those defensive by finishing defensive possessions with rebounds and initiating the tempo offensively. So he's doing all those things that I think this was kind of the opportunity he thought he would have at Nebraska, was to showcase himself as more than just a catch and shoot 3-point shooter, which kind of was all Iowa really allowed him to do under Fran McCaffrey. So he's kind of taken that step in his all-around game that has made him more than just a one-trick pony. And I think that really it's his defense and ability to beat guys off the dribble and be just as much of a threat at the rim as he is at the 3-point line that has really been the difference for him this year.
Robin, you can tell me if it's too early to ask this question. I'm going to ask it and either say too early or give me your thoughts. What we've seen now, what's the ceiling for this team?
I mean, NCAA tournament seems like it's almost an expectation at this point. I mean, you look at all the metrics. I mean, obviously their net ranking is what it is, but everybody's. I was actually just looking at some stuff today, and bracket matrix, they evaluated 31 brackets, and all of them have Nebraska in it, and the consensus seed's right about a 6 or a 7. So I think as long as they're able to kind of hold par here, they're going to be in that territory at minimum, and then who knows where it goes. I mean, you start winning games that nobody expects you to win. You go and give Illinois a run, or whatever it is, Michigan State at home. Like, these are opportunities that you get playing in a league as difficult as the Big Ten. They took care of business, assuming they do what they're supposed to do over these final 2 non-con games. So if you're 11-0 in the non-con and you're able to go 9-10 wins in Big Ten play at minimum, then I think you're firmly in the tournament. It's not a matter of being on the bubble. It's just a matter of what seed you're going to be at that point. So Nebraska has positioned itself very well going into the new year. Again, they've got a big one Saturday. They got to make sure they take care of business the rest of the way with these remaining bye games. But assuming that all goes the way that it's been going, they're going to enter January with a significant opportunity to not only, lock a return trip to the NCAA tournament, but potentially play for one of their highest seeds that they've had in a long time. Some of them have anywhere from a 6 or 7. I've seen anywhere from a 3 or a 4 seed with some of the projections that are out there. But, that I think the good thing about this group is they have the abilities, at least so far, to handle success and handle expectations. So, guys like us and the fans are maybe getting a little ahead of ourselves, projecting how high of a seed they could possibly be. I think this group has the poise and confidence and kind of game-to-game approach that's going to allow them to kind of take all of the ebbs and flows that are going to come, especially once that 18 straight Big Ten grind hits in January.
Rob, I want to get you out on a football question here. Nebraska obviously has made 3 coaching staff changes, defensive coordinator, defensive line, and then offensive line. At this point now, Nebraska has 2 coaches on its coaching staff that are in the same role when Matt Rule initially hired him when he became the head coach at Nebraska. I think he deserves a lot of credit, and I think he's received a lot of credit for being a guy who's willing to make quick changes if he feels like things aren't working out. But is there something that's sort of missing in this discussion with some of the hires and the amount of hires that Matt Rule has made at Nebraska on his coaching staff that have not worked out to this point?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing. Like, you can praise him for making all these new hires, but you can also criticize him for needing to make all of these hires, and the fact that he's missed on a lot of guys early. And so it's kind of one of those things where certainly you got to commend him for being willing to make difficult choices, especially with guys that are close friends of his. That's not an easy thing to do. And some coaches, as we've seen in the past, can be reluctant to make moves that are clearly necessary to make. So that's the positive side, is that, Rule is kind of putting personal relationships aside and doing what he feels is best to make his team, and his staff as good as possible. The other part of it is, why do they need to make all these changes? Why are you missing on so many of these hires that don't work out, or, they've short-lived, or for whatever it is. So I think it's kind of a two-sided coin there, that you hope that this, kind of gradual evolution based off what he's learned through his time in the Big Ten and what it takes, what kind of staff you need, the chemistry you need internally, like all those things, maybe like, you're making these mistakes early, but you're learning from it. That's what you got to hope with some of these new hires, that this new round of staff that he's bringing in are a byproduct of kind of some hard lessons he learned over the first 3 years of what he needs and what he doesn't need to make this staff as good as it can be.
Mark it down, December 13th, Saturday against Illinois. Probably the most excited I've seen fans about Husker basketball this early in the season. And, we get a little break with football. I mean, this is welcome sight.
Shout out Robin for, saying a certain set of numbers in a certain order multiple times in an answer and not making any gestures while you were doing it. So,
yes,
yeah, I'm glad my kids didn't hear me. They would have been in the background screaming 6-7. They don't even know what it means, but they just say it all the time.
Nobody knows.
I don't think anybody knows. That's the secret.
It's like that scene in, what was the Will Ferrell and...
the ice skating one.
Yeah. Blades of Glory. He goes,
yes,
nobody knows what it means, but it's provocative. Gets the people going.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
And make sure too when you submit your sound bites of the week for the Nebraska cinematic recaps to the creative team, that gets included.
Yeah, I cannot take any credit for that. That is all beyond my control. I think a lot of it is they just don't have very many basketball people to clip sound bites from. So you know what? I'll take it by default.
He is Robin Washut of Husker Online, the best when it comes to covering Husker basketball. Robin, appreciate you joining us, my man. Have a very Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to you and your family as well.
You too, guys. Merry Christmas.
Good stuff from Robin Washut on the football and basketball front. We're going to get to our mailbag here in just a moment, but we are less than a week away from our Huskers live on tap at Cross Train Brewing in La Vista. It's coming up on Tuesday, December 16th, 5 to 7 p.m. Again, Cross Train Brewing in La Vista, where it's going to be us two, but also our amazing panel of Mike Schaefer, Michael Bruns, Brian Christopherson, and an added bonus guest, Lincoln Arneal, to talk some volleyball, because we are quite confident that we're going to be talking about a Final Four.
Oh, yeah.
Knocking on wood. Made sure I knocked on wood. But it's going to be awesome. The Cross Train Brewing, Tuesday, 5 to 7 over at the Cross Train Brewing in La Vista, the main production facility, as I'm sure many of you have been there and have also enjoyed the official craft beer of the Huskers, the Cornhusker Crusher. And then also don't forget, the day after our Huskers Live on Tap is going to be one of their great holiday events, their 12 Jams of Christmas. So busy week at Cross Train, but a busy show because we do not have any shortage of topics when it comes to
I know.
Huskers.
It's like we're doing this, we're doing it for 2 hours.
Yes. We might need an extra.
That's tough. Hey, the good thing, though, too, is if you can't make it out, we hope you can, but if you can't, that will be serving as our podcast episode for the week. So you will be able to listen to the whole thing if you're perhaps listening out of state, anywhere else. But if you are in state, if you are in Omaha, we hope to see you out there.
Absolutely.
Come say hello to us and get a chance, too, to win some stuff from a number of different places, including Cross Train and then Omaha Steaks, too, I think, right?
Absolutely, yes. Let's get to our mailbag. I'm going to start with Dr. Shane because he got this in last week right after we recorded. Yes, it was right after we recorded.
Poor guy.
So Dr. Shane said, sorry, I haven't emailed in a while. My question I thought of during the Nebraska-Iowa game, can we put armed security on the sideline so the Iowa cheerleaders can't take their darn flags onto our field?
You know, that's a Troy Dannon question.
I mean,
but I don't know. I mean, yeah.
If they're going to protect the Tiger Hawk at midfield,
I know that's so
then
stupid.
You know what? Maybe we need to protect Tom Osborne Field as well. So
there
you know
go.
what? I think Dr. Shane is onto something.
That's an
right
acceptable
there.
answer.
Yes. And Dr. Shane, always appreciate you tuning in. PB from the O, he's got a couple questions. Starts off with this obvious question about the running back room for 2026. What will be the situation most likely next year? Two-headed tailback or a single running back portal pickup?
I lean heavy to it'll be more than one back. We heard Matt Rule talk about that today, or earlier this week, rather. Normally he's looking for somebody with maybe 20 carries and 14, or that sort of distribution. So I think this year's a bit of an anomaly. At a certain point, Nebraska discovered, especially after Dylan Raiola went down, that Emmett Johnson was about it on offense.
Yeah.
That wasn't necessarily a good thing, that it devolved to that by the time we got to the end. But I don't foresee Nebraska wanting to lean into that in the future and put all their eggs into one basket like that. So I think this year was a bit of a one-off on that front. Although I wish they would commit more to a particular back. Emmett really this year was the first time they had somebody good enough to do that too. So that's the other piece of this discussion that I think warrants maybe some time in terms of, okay, yes, they would like to do two, but they really haven't done a good enough job to this point finding somebody like Emmett who could actually assert themselves as a one.
That's the key there. And I think given not only Matt Rule's history, but Dana Holgerson's history too, unless you do have that alpha elite back that can give you the workload like Emmett could, both individuals, both Rule and Holgerson, are more accustomed to, as Rule said, one guy 20 carries, the other guy 14 carries. You combined a heavy workload, and hopefully you have that. I know this is the most cliche, but I'll just use it anyway, the thunder and lightning combination. But I remember even 2 years ago when Nebraska did go into the transfer portal to get a running back in Dante Dowdell, the thought was that he was going to be that guy, that workhorse,
the number one.
The 25 to 30 carry guy. And he just didn't come along as much as they hoped he would. Now, who's to say if he was still with Nebraska after the season that Emmett had, that maybe he would be that type of guy? I don't know. So what I would say about the whole idea in the transfer portal is what Nebraska put on tape with running backs that are looking to be showcased, I thought was a very good thing in efforts of trying to find that type of running back. It's going to cost you, and there's not a lot of those guys out there. You're not going to see a lot of Kawan Lacey's that Nebraska can grab.
No,
but
although Nebraska couldn't grab
yes,
Kawan
they could.
Lacey
I know
the first time around.
That still hurts me a little bit. But I think right now you're looking for someone that can complement your young stable of running backs, but can still come in hitting the ground running and feel like he's going to be a major part of that. Who that is and how much money he will
For me,
cost.
you got to swing for a number one.
You do.
Yeah,
You
it has to be
absolutely
a number.
do.
Like the guy that you get has to be the guy that's getting the majority of the carries next year.
Yeah, you spend the money, but is the reality that you'll find that guy?
You can tell me about the bright future that Mekhi Nelson and Isaiah Mosey have all the live long day.
Yeah.
I don't really care. Like
I'm with you.
I like. We'll see what this bowl game. That is one storyline in the bowl game that is intriguing to me. Is those two guys and what they do in the wake of Emmett Johnson's departure. But I'm not sold on either of them.
How can you be? You didn't, we haven't seen them.
But even in the limited stuff that we've seen, I'm not sold.
Well, and even
I don't see it.
Isaiah Mosey, I think, is one guy that I'm really fascinated to see in this one because I want to see what he's done from day one or week 1 and week 2 of the season to where he is now in that development, and we'll see what his workload looks like. But yeah, I think you're without question identifying a running back in the portal, and you're hoping to pay good money and for that person to be a guy, but still to think that they're going to have the Emmett workload, we'll pump the brakes just a little bit on that. Second question for PB from the O. Nebraska men's and women's basketball ranked in the top 25 this week. What is the ceiling for both teams, and has the bar moved on the season outlook, or is it just a hot run? That's a good question. I would say for me, men's, I'm moving it a little bit. The expectation.
Yeah, I am.
I think the ceiling is
on men for sure.
Is trying to be a Friday team, trying to be a Friday Big Ten tournament type team where you get the double bye. Well, you've got the entire Big Ten now in the Big Ten tournament. So if you can be playing your first game in the Big Ten tournament on that final day where the top 4 seeds play, more power to you. And Nebraska showed they could do that. They did it a couple years ago. So why not this team with the type of start that they're having? And I will say this, just the contribution that we knew would be huge, but Rink Mast has been outstanding. And all of this is happening with the news of a guy that I thought would be a major part of this offense and a huge reason if Nebraska were to have this record would have been right there with Rink Mast, and that's Connor Essegian. Lost for the season, yet they did not miss a beat. What they did against Creighton, I get it, Creighton's banged up and everything, but what they did against Creighton was dominant bully basketball. That's what you need to win in the Big Ten. I thought that was a great look into what they could do in the Big Ten.
To me, first off, Nate Lenzer has done a great job against Creighton for about 4 years now. You know, the only exception to his defensive game plan, I guess, failing, it was Baylor Shireman shooting the lights out of the gym at PBA 3 years ago or 2 years ago. So there's that. I don't necessarily, I know there are other teams that are capable of beating it, right? Like essentially Nebraska gives up short corner, and there are certain threes that, as a result of the scrambling that they do around helping off guys, that you'll give up. And you're just tipping your cap essentially to your opponent from making them if they do. Nebraska's ability to scramble on defense actually is better than last year, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
And the other thing that really is encouraging to me about this team, and especially about that Creighton game, and you think back to last year too, where Nebraska beats Creighton on the road, and then you feel really good about the year, and especially in making the tournament a year prior, and you don't have Rink Mast, but you're still doing well, and things started to fall apart during Big Ten play, and once you got on the road and those sorts of things. What's different to me about this year, you had 3 different guys scoring double figures, and 5 different guys. You had 2 more guys on that who scored 7 or more. And there's more than one option. It's not entirely Jawan Gary and Bryce Williams dependent, right? And so that to me is one of the things that is really, really intriguing about this year. Jamarcus Lawrence had 8 points in this game. He's capable of leading your scoring. Price Sanford,
addition.
3rd on the team in scoring in this game. That probably is going to be your number 1 guy, other than Rink Mast, probably. So I guess number 2, night in and night out. And then, what other contributions do you get from guys like Braden Frager? I mean, there's a lot to like with this team to this point. So my outlook for Nebraska is definitely higher than it was maybe 2 weeks ago. For the women, I would say I'm about in the same spot where I was
just going to say the same thing. Yeah,
I'm waiting for that first big test for them because I don't really feel like we've seen it yet.
No,
you've seen some good competition for them. Of course, winning their holiday tournament against Virginia. You've opened Big Ten play against Penn State. You're incredibly high scoring and efficient offensively. So there's a lot to like there. I think some of this exists for the men for me too. So I'm not saying I'm totally sold. I'm still wait and see. I'm more wait and see with the women than the men to this point because beating Creighton is significant, but for both teams. But I'm still looking for a few more bigger challenges.
Yeah, women's team 10 straight at 80+ offensively. They've looked good. Don't get me wrong, they've looked good, but I feel like men have been a little more battle tested. I want to say this about the men real quick too, and we'll find out more tonight against Wisconsin. The inside game, especially defensively, has been solid. Rebounding has been a lot better than it's been in the past couple of years, even when Nebraska went on that great run 2 years ago. And even though he's not lighting it up offensively, Burke Biektingel has been awesome inside. He has been great in the paint. So that has been also a nice Jamarcus Lawrence too. He wasn't injured.
How many times have we talked about Fred Hoiberg teams that just get killed on the glass?
Yes.
And to this point, that hasn't showed up yet this year.
The Jamarcus Lawrence thing is interesting because remember, he's here, then he transfers, comes back, like, okay,
and
what's
he
this
had to
going to
deal
be?
with some foul trouble in this game. I would say they were obviously better with him on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
Like Cale Jacobson is doing a great job off the bench as the backup point guard. But you get some turnovers a little bit with J-Law sometimes. But I still feel like Nebraska overall much, much smoother, much more efficient. You got a better vibe or feel around that offense when he's running it.
Yeah, I was curious about him coming back when it happened, and it has worked out very well. All right, final question from Max. Nebraska volleyball is one of 7 teams that have not lost a set in the tournament this year. Indiana, Texas, Wisconsin, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, and SMU are the others. Who out of the remaining field of 16 should they be most worried about, or is there anyone?
I would say probably Louisville.
I think Wisconsin and Texas.
I would leave those 2 teams out. I'm not as concerned about them as I am about Kentucky, a team that almost swept Nebraska at the beginning of the season. Huskers had to reverse sweep that one. That is the closest anyone has been to beating Nebraska all year long. Eva Hudson is very, very good. That is a team with a former Nebraska, a John Cook coaching tree guy and Greg Skinner leading it, that is capable of beating Nebraska. On the other side, Huskers wouldn't face them until a potential national championship game. I know that's kind of the obvious answer, but that's who I would go with. Is Kentucky is at the number 1 part of my list, and then Louisville number 2. They got pushed by Marquette last weekend. Kind of a weird game. I guess just because Dan Meskey would know the DBK systems from coaching under her for as long as he has.
I just think Wisconsin is starting to play very solid at the right time. So that's why,
good reasoning there,
that's
too.
why I'd throw them in there. All right, Grant had a chance to catch up with Andrew Marshall, get some insight on his preparation for the upcoming bowl game against Utah, but more importantly, his connection with the new defensive coordinator, Rob Orich. Here is Grant talking with Andrew Marshall.
Folks, welcome back. It's Huskers All Access, brought to you by Access Bank, here for a reason. Grant Hansen here with Nebraska DB Andrew Marshall. And, so what did it mean to you when Coach Rule brings you into his office and asks you for advice on Coach Ark and the future of Nebraska's defense?
It was big for me, just really understanding that a coach trusts my opinion and, he values what I have to say and making, important decisions for the whole team. It was big for me. It was an honor.
Tell us about what fans can expect from Coach Rob and the future for this Husker defense. What do you remember when you were with him at Idaho?
Remember him being, he's a great guy. He's very passionate about football. Funny guy. I feel like you're going to see his passion reflect on the football field and how we play and just the plays that we make. He loves to put his players in position to make plays.
Great leaders motivate others. What does he do to get the best out of his players as a guy who's already played under him?
He's going to go to his playmakers, and, I feel like it's on your playmaker. He puts it on his playmakers to really lead and bring the team along, which I feel like he does a great job of.
What excites you about this destination and this opponent? You're going to Vegas to face off against Utah. Just how excited are you for that experience, and then who you get to face too?
I'm taking it all in. This will be my first bowl game, which, enjoy it. You will be out there in Vegas, which is also close to home for me, so I have family members out there. Great experience. But, just going to compete in a bowl game, because a lot of teams don't make it to a bowl game, so, we have that to look forward to and really just honing in on the details right now and getting prepared for it.
This is a crazy time because you got staff members coming and going. Sometimes you have the same thing with players. You have finals. You know, how do you stay grounded during this period where you've got Christmas coming up, and also on top of that, you're going to go play a game on New Year's Eve?
I feel like this is a time where, you know, you really look for your teammates. You know, they help you guys. We help each other, keep each other grounded. You know, with all the things, like, things can be very chaotic going on. You know, you look to the leaders on the team and just keeping everybody grounded and focused on what's ahead of them.
In a normal part of this season, I guess, apart from football, whether it's Christmas or whatever else, what do you look forward to about this time of year?
Most definitely Christmas. You know, going back, I'm a family guy, so just going back and being able to see my family for Christmas would be a big thing for me. You know, and then, the bowl game. It's my first one, so just ready to experience that.
What's your favorite gift that you've ever received, and what's your favorite Christmas gift that you've ever given somebody else?
My favorite gift I ever received, I got a dirt bike when I was younger. I ride dirt bikes, so, you know, on Christmas, we walked us outside. We all had brand new dirt bikes. The best gift I ever gave, something for my parents. I didn't got them, you know, plenty of things, so definitely something for my parents or my little sister.
Well, he's Andrew Marshall, and this has been Huskers All Access, brought to you by Access Bank, here for a reason.
Good stuff with Grant and Andrew Marshall. Nebraska taking on Utah in the Las Vegas Bowl. That'll be on December 31st, so New Year's Day,
2:30.
New Year's Eve afternoon plans. There you go. And then you can just keep the good times rolling.
Mm-hmm.
But should be I don't want to say a great matchup because
it's not a good matchup on paper for Nebraska, but you don't know who's playing in the game yet.
That's true.
So that's what you got to figure out.
There's a lot of those X factors there.
And look, if you're Nebraska, it's like, well, at the very least, you get a chance here to take on and beat a ranked team.
Yep.
I mean, what's the worst that could happen? The losing streak against a ranked team stretches to 30. I mean, it's like, who cares?
Right. Before we get to the college football playoff, some of the key bowl games looking at, you had mentioned the North Texas San Diego State Bowl, or not, that's not the name of the bowl.
New Mexico Bowl.
The New Mexico Bowl, but between those two teams, sneaky good game. A couple that I had listed, Georgia Tech, BYU, and the Pop-Tarts Bowl, the bowl that Notre Dame was supposed to play in. That should be a good one. I do like the Music City matchup between Tennessee and Illinois, Alamo Bowl between USC, TCU, Citrus Bowl, Michigan, Texas, even the ReliaQuest Bowl with Iowa and Vanderbilt.
I like that one.
Could be a lot of fun,
I mean,
too.
I always like watching, Iowa usually plays in that one, or I guess the Outback Bowl, which is dead, I think, right?
They usually find themselves in Florida. Yeah, the Outback Bowl. Rest in peace.
Anyway, I always like kind of watching Iowa play whatever SEC team they're facing off against, and then people being like, whoa, what the hell?
just see what happens. But the college football playoff, this led to some conversation we'll get to here in a moment as far as the selection process. But I will say this, just the way the bracket works out, how the seeds worked out, we might have some absolutely epic quarterfinals. I think we will have some epic quarterfinals. There's really in the first round, one side of the bracket, two games, Vegas would agree, are major mismatches. Oregon, JMU, JMU, great story, but Oregon, that's going to be an absolute bear. And then you look at, obviously, the Tulane
and Ole Miss game that we've already seen once. Yeah.
Right. So those are the obvious ones, but I'll tell you, Miami versus Texas A&M.
Very interesting game.
And then OU, Oklahoma. Seen that one?
OU, Alabama, yeah.
I'm sorry, Alabama, yeah. OU.
Yeah.
OU
and
is
that
Oklahoma.
that one is more like whose offense can screw it up the least is kind of that game. I look, Oklahoma's essentially transformation over the course of the last 3 to 4 years from being one of the best offensive teams in the sport, a travesty defensively, to the complete inverse of that is one of the more intriguing stories in the sport right now. That defense is so good. The offense is borderline unwatchable. It's borderline Hawkeyes. So, it's or borderline Nebraska at times. So anyhow, those two games both very, very intriguing. The quarterfinals, I agree. I'm interested to see. I don't know. The bye part of it is interesting to me because like I don't know if I would want another week to sit around and wait.
Right.
And we saw the bye teams last year not necessarily get off to the best starts.
There was rust without question.
So I'm like, does that trend continue in year 2 of this setup?
It's going to be cool to see. I just thought last year seeing college football, high leverage postseason games played on college campuses is awesome. I look forward to that. But yeah, here's their potential quarterfinals: Oregon, Texas Tech, Indiana against the winner of Bama and Oklahoma, Georgia, Ole Miss, likely Ole Miss, and then Ohio State against the winner of Miami and Texas A&M. All those are bangers. Like those are fantastic games. And then the semifinals, if we're just going by the seeding too, you're looking at Indiana, Texas Tech, and then you're looking at Ohio State, Georgia. Yeah. I don't know if Ohio State makes it to the semifinals.
No, I don't either. I mean, it goes back to what I was saying last week when I picked Indiana to win. They didn't win by double digits like I thought they could. But, that Ohio State had
higher scoring games. We both took Indiana.
That Ohio State defense is very, very good. Very, very good. At the same time, I really do not have a lot of faith in Julian Sayin or really anything apart from Jeremiah Smith. You do like Bo Jackson, a running back. I like him. His name aside, he's definitely his own player. But there's a lot to like with him. I'm not in love with Ohio State this year. We'll see if my mind gets changed as they did a year ago. But I'm more interested in Texas Tech too, really.
Yep.
A team that beat the brakes off BYU twice. And that's kind of their best competition that they've faced. So what do they look like against the best of the Big Ten and the SEC? Super intriguing.
Yeah, there's some very, very cool potential matchups with storylines with them. The big storyline following the selection show was, first of all, teams opting out, but the most notable one was Notre Dame opting out of what I mentioned earlier. They were invited to play in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. They said no because they got passed up in the college football playoff. And since Pete Bavacqua, the athletic director at Notre Dame, has gone on this very odd rant, and he continues to double down on this, on how the ACC basically orchestrated this smear campaign against Notre Dame, who Notre Dame considers to be their conference, because yes, 24 of their sports are associated to the ACC and members of the ACC. And he went on the Rich Eisen show. He did a press conference about this. He's not backing down. And now you have not only Jim Phillips of the ACC pushing back, but you have other commissioners pushing back, trying to remind Bavacqua and everyone else at Notre Dame that the ACC was there in the COVID year when you otherwise were not going to be able to play football, and they allowed you to play in the conference and set up a schedule for you. And I'm not saying Notre Dame should bow down and should always be grateful of that, but I want to go back to what Pete Bavacqua is saying is a smear campaign. Isn't it? Let me ask you this question. Isn't a conference commissioner and a conference themselves job, especially in the high stakes of college football, to promote the teams and put on, it's like a Heisman Trophy race, to promote the teams and try to put out all of the numbers and all of the metrics to lift up the teams in their conference, to the teams that actually play football in their conference, and promote them as much as they can to try to get the college football playoff to look as much at them. That's all they were doing.
Well, no, they have a responsibility to Miami to do that.
If you put a side to side of Miami and Notre Dame, I don't care the fact that they mention the things that maybe favor Miami to Notre Dame, because Miami, is an actual football member. Notre Dame, you're not.
The ACC.
Yes, you're not Notre Dame.
It's people did postulate that kind of the theory that, like, what if Virginia beats Duke, then does the committee put Notre Dame in over Miami because the ACC is then represented in the CFP? I don't know. I want to reiterate this, even though it's not my take. Nick Wright had a really good take on this. And he's not really a college football guy. But sometimes I think that perspective from the outside of the CFP or the college football universe is good and valuable. And so here's what he laid out. He said, look, what this did, when we expanded, got expanded to 12, what this was essentially designed to do is to make sure everybody in this year's edition of the bracket Texas A&M on down was included.
Yeah.
Because everybody from Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Oregon, Texas Tech, Georgia, Ohio State, and Indiana, they all deserve, for sure, without beyond a shadow of a doubt, a chance to pursue the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Everybody else that gets in beyond that, that's just a gravy invite to the party.
Yeah.
And where that number
Absolutely.
is, by the way, whether some years it's Texas A&M at 7, some years it's different teams at 6, or maybe it's only 5 teams some years. But the point is, the reason to expand to 12 is so that we don't have an issue where we have a 14 playoff and number 5 and number 6 play in different conferences and have as many losses as number 4, and they're wondering why they didn't get in.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because you weren't the last at-large bid in, who cares? You didn't do enough. You wouldn't even be close to the conversation if it was a 14 playoff.
Right.
So who cares? And so, look, I think there's a fair gripe to be had with 2 G5 or two group of 5 teams being in.
Yes.
I think that's fair. Look, it's a quirk of the highest, some of the qualifiers that exist for how you get in. Now, if there had been something put in place where we actually had a play-in game or whatever else, the automatic bids that the ACC wanted to have, any of those sorts of things, it'd be a different deal. But those conferences turned that down, and we could have had that this year.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I think Notre Dame has nothing to complain about. And it's like, I had somebody who said, well, Notre Dame did everything they're supposed to do, everything except beat Texas A&M and Miami.
In Miami, exactly.
Who cares that it's by a certain amount?
Right.
Like, you play those games because if you're Notre Dame, you want to beat Miami and then have the exact same tiebreaker that Miami had over you. That's why you schedule those games. So who cares that you feel like you're playing the better football right now? You lost to the team earlier in the year. That's the part of why you schedule the game, is so that you could have those bragging rights over them if you beat them. And now, because you're on the losing side, you're just going to take your ball and go home.
Exactly.
Stupid.
And that's where
stupid.
I want to end my thought on Notre Dame about this too. For even in the press release of them opting out of the bowl game, of how they look to bring back a 12th national championship to South Bend, and there was a little bit of that historical take of Notre Dame, and everybody, especially, look, I have nothing against Notre Dame fans and anybody who roots for them, but you know it and I know it. They will cram we are what's great about college football, the gold helmets, touchdown Jesus, all of the tradition that comes with. They stand for what's good with college football and all of this ever-changing landscape with college football. Notre Dame is that one tradition that'll never change. That's bull crap. Because you are opting out of a bowl game. If you're the high and mighty program that you claim to be, you go out on your terms and not what guys decided on your fate with the college football playoff. So Notre Dame, do not lecture any of us on college football traditions and how you are the college football tradition when you decide to opt out of a bowl game because you got your feelings hurt. That is garbage.
Yeah. Well, and then my final thought here, too, for our show. I know we're running out of time, but the CFP got it right. I think they got their rankings right.
I did, too.
For 2 reasons. You can't disincentivize early non-conference scheduling like Notre Dame and Miami did by putting Notre Dame in over Miami. When it comes to Notre Dame or Alabama, look, penalizing Alabama for playing in a conference championship game that they earned getting there is ridiculous. And I get it. Like, people are like, okay, well then what about BYU?
Yeah.
What about BYU? People did penalize BYU, right? Right? Well, no, because Alabama beat Georgia during the regular season.
Yeah.
BYU got shellacked twice by Texas A&M. It was clear the level of difference between those two programs.
I agree. I know a lot of people are going to cry SEC bias. I don't see it that way.
I don't. I think Alabama deserved to be in.
I do too.
They deserve to be that at-large bid. And so, look, for Notre Dame, you win your non-conference games. One of those 2 games, you're not in this situation. Meanwhile, for BYU, if you beat Texas Tech, either of the 2 times you played them, you're not in this situation. Alabama, they earned it. Look, I can tell you, Notre Dame definitely was playing better football down the stretch than Alabama was. Alabama certainly was leaking down the stretch, but you have to honor them beating Georgia earlier in the season and making it to the SEC championship game. So I think the committee did the right thing. Now, do we need to maybe explore certain things like perhaps limits on how many G5 teams can get into the playoff? whether we allow a G5 team into the playoff, and certain things like tiebreakers in conferences to make it to conference championship games like you had in the ACC, or the cluster F that could have existed in the Big Ten if, for example, Ohio State had lost to Michigan and Oregon had lost to Washington. Yeah. Yes, we need to look at some of those things. I think that's the next step, but the committee did the right thing here.
That is going to do it for us. We are out of time, but we obviously had a lot to get to. But we will do that next Tuesday at Crosstrain at the Huskers Live on Tap live broadcast with ourselves and our friends Mike Schaefer, Michael Bruntz, Brian Christopherson, and Lincoln Arneal talking about a lot of this stuff and a lot of Husker football, volleyball, basketball, all that. So we hope to see you down there Tuesday from 5 to 7 at Crosstrain in La Vista. Big thanks to Robin Washut for joining the show. Great conversation with you and Andrew Marshall. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And until next week at Crosstrain, we will see you then on Husker Huddle.